Welcome back to Deep Dive, the podcast that goes beyond the surface to help you live out your faith with a deeper understanding and purpose. My name's John Coombs. I'm the lead pastor here at Murrelbark Baptist Church, and today we're following up on last week's deep dive into rest, specifically how God's Word shows us the spiritual and eternal dimensions of rest. Last week we looked at a theology of rest, how it began in creation and woven throughout the story of God's people and ultimately fulfilled in Jesus. But today we are getting practical, the practice of rest. How do we actually live out the rest that God promises us, especially in the busyness of modern life? Before we dive into specific ways to practice rest, I do want to highlight something we touched on last week. Rest isn't just about taking time off. It isn't just about sitting there on the couch and doing nothing. It is actually about trust. It's about laying down the need to constantly strive for something or someone and to have control over everything that is in our orbit, even ourselves. But as we learn from Hebrews, entering God's rest is more than simply stopping our work. It's about faith, about trusting that the work of Jesus is enough. And so when we rest, we're making a statement that we believe God holds everything in his hands. Jesus offers us rest. He invites our souls into rest in Matthew 11. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me. I mean, we could do a whole episode on learning from Jesus, possibly a whole series, but because I am lowly in heart, and you will find your souls. You will find rest for your souls. Building on this foundation and holding to this promise we have here, let's explore how we can practice this soul-level rest in our lives. Sometimes it's the people around us who see that we need rest before we do. I mentioned last week how burnout hit me last year and very, very hard, because I didn't really realise how badly I needed rest. It wasn't just a holiday or time off that I needed, but it was deeper than that. There was genuinely a need, and upon reflection, I can affirm this even more so, a need of a reset of my soul, we could say. For many of us, the warning lights are there. They're flashing on the dashboard of our lives, but we keep pushing forward. We keep going, oh, she'll be right. I'll just keep going. I'll keep going. If I can only get to Sunday, if I can only get to next month, if I can only get to Christmas. People around me now have the invitation to always ask how I'm doing, how I'm traveling in my energy and my pace. And often they notice and point out the signs of hurry before I notice them. I wonder whether you have people in your life who can notice that you seem to be a little more hurried, that you seem to be a little bit more anxious, a little bit more stressed about the pace of life that you're living in. Not just that, how you're doing, oh yeah, I'm doing all right, oh just, yeah, everything's pretty busy, yep, you know. But we all need those pit stops. We all need moments of stillness to refuel, times to just recalibrate. And often we don't recognise it until we've been either pushed ourselves too far or someone very much close to us begins to point out some areas in our life that we may need to take a stock take on. But just as much as people might ask, including myself, how I'm going and whether or not I'm hurrying around in life or not, it is also my own responsibility, is it not, to actually slow down the pace of life enough for me and for those around me. It's me that needs to be self-aware enough and disciplined enough to see the hurry or the anxiety or the lack of rest in front of me. A great quote from Augustine, he famously said, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." We often feel like we're chasing after rest, but the only true rest we'll ever find is in God. The only true rest we'll ever find is in God. And that's the rest we're invited into, a rest that isn't dependent on circumstances, but on our trust in God's presence and provision. Well, how might we then apply this to our lives? To begin with, here are a few practical ways we might start practicing rest. Last week we talked about Sabbath. So the first point is, why don't we establish a Sabbath rhythm? Take one day each week to intentionally stop working. This day should be set aside to focus on God, spend time with loved ones, enjoy His creation, do things that are life-giving, that bring us joy. The Sabbath isn't just a break from work, remember. It's a reminder that the world can keep turning without us. God has everything under control. We are not the centre of the universe. Now, you may well be asking whether or not this is entirely possible in our busy modern day lives. I get it. It is a hard challenge and goes against the culture we live in. We are encouraged to work and work and work. And if we're not working, to at least have some connection with work, which is usually a phone in our pockets or in our hands. It doesn't mean that we just stay still for a whole 24-hour period, but it means life-giving activities with the intention of resting in God. I can assure you that it is actually possible to slow down, and in doing so, it is actually possible to do something that is rather countercultural to the way of life that we see around, and that our friends and that our families and that everyone we know is running that treadmill on. In this highly anxious world that we live in, we can take moments, and including a whole 24-hour period a day, to begin to establish a Sabbath rhythm. I have found that in having a dedicated day where I'm intentional about things like spending time with God, with my family, operating at a slower pace than I usually do on other days, I end up getting more done during the rest of the week. Now, much more could be said of this. It isn't easy, but it does begin with getting the diary out and starting. Maybe an hour or two, like actually time blocking it off in our diary and calendar. Maybe an hour or two over the coming month. Maybe half a day. Maybe a whole day. But we're coming towards that crazy part of the year, that lead up to Christmas, where there's always things on, there's always events on. But now might be a good time to start and begin planning so that we are feeling rested and having the beginnings of a rhythm that leads us towards Sabbath. The second thing is, take small daily breaks. I hope you do that, folks. Take small daily breaks throughout the day. Pause to rest for a few minutes. Those short breaks, whether it's prayer or silence or just stepping outside for a short walk or heading down to the cafe for a coffee, for a takeaway, whatever, help us refocus and remind us that we're not defined by what we do, that productivity treadmill. This was certainly a learning for me. I would often line up 3 or 4 appointments with people back to back in a day. Perhaps you're in a job that has meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and you roll from meeting after a meeting after meeting. And then talking about my context, needing to prepare for Sunday's service, to another meeting, bounce into emails, bounce into phone calls, whatever it might be. I used to operate with very few breaks in the day, and really with the intention of trying to squeeze every ounce of time and productivity out of that period of time. And so what it does to our bodies, though, is it keeps those stresses going, right? All that adrenaline and dopamine is surging through us. It's do. We get on a roll. Well, now I set alarms to have breaks. I'm more comfortable in my own mind to go, no, I can get up from the desk. I can stop thinking about this. No, I can put that off to another time. I take sufficient time to maybe go for a short walk, or to spend 5 minutes in prayer, or to even schedule less meetings or less things in a day. And what it does is it actually makes life more sustainable, more productive, and more enjoyable. Who would have thought? I know. So the first one is establish a Sabbath rest. The second one is take small daily breaks. The third one, perhaps use all your holiday leave. I'm not sure whether you get holiday leave or not. I imagine you might if you're working. But if you're not working, you need to work out when you might have particular holidays. But don't let those leave days slip. It's tempting to push through often, but take the time off that's necessary in the year when you need to recharge and to bring some balance. It's not a luxury to have a break. It's not a luxury to rest. It's actually part of God's design for us. Number 4 would be to seek stillness in God's presence. We could spend a lot of time here talking about personal devotions perhaps, but set aside moments, whether it's in a day or whether it's over the course of a week or a month, to be quiet before God. It's easy to rush through our spiritual practices, whether that's Bible reading or prayer or journaling or conversation with a friend, whatever it might be. But resting in God's presence without an agenda helps us trust Him more deeply and find peace that really surpasses understanding. We go in with an intention of really silence and solitude. A couple of those practices are certainly part of our Christian heritage and Christian history, but they get lost. And in the modern day, with all our phones and technology, the ability to be contacted, the ability to stay distracted, that opportunity for silence and solitude really gets squeezed out. So I'd encourage you to seek some stillness with God in His presence through that. The final thing, or number 5, I should say, is finding joy in unproductive activities. Rest isn't just about physical recovery, it's about renewing our joy and our peace and our hope in God, finding something we enjoy that doesn't have a productive outcome, like reading or painting or playing music or playing with our kids or walking in nature or whatever it might be. Let that refresh you. Spend time in that living, life-giving activity. Maybe it's a jigsaw puzzle. Maybe it's a puzzle book. Maybe it's something that is out and about at nature, sitting on a chair looking out at the beach, whatever it might be. It might feel luxurious, but again, it really isn't. It's part of God's design for us to rest, and that can include unproductive activities. There's nothing wrong with that. Remember, even Jesus, who carried the weight of the world, knew when to step away and rest. In Luke 5, it says, "Yet he often withdrew to deserted places and prayed." Well, if Jesus needed to rest, how much more do you and I need to as well? Jesus knew the importance of retreating from the crowds and the demands of life to spend time with the Father. And this is one of the points I'm certainly making here. Another quote for you, though. Francis Schaeffer once said, "If we put activity, even good activity, at the centre, rather than trusting God, then there may be the power of the world, but we will lack the power of the Holy Spirit." This gets to the heart of why rest is so important. When we rely on our own strength and keep pushing forward without rest, we lose out on the Spirit's power working through us. More ways to practically implement rest in our life might be things like setting boundaries for technology use. Again, I might go into this in further detail in the future, but this is a big learning I've had. Technology keeps us constantly connected, keeps us basically feeling exhausted all the time. Set boundaries when you check emails, do social media. Have intentional off times so that you have space for rest. Practice resting before you're exhausted, before you get tired. See what's coming up. Plan specifically to have rest. And finally, rest is about trusting in God and His control and sovereignty. When we rest, we're acknowledging that the world doesn't depend on us, but God invites us to lay our burdens down, give them to Him, and trust that He's got this. Because guess what? He's got this. So we can hand things over to Him, hand them all over to Him, and step into that invitation to rest in him. I'm going to wrap up there. I just wanted to remind you that rest is more than just the physical. It is about trusting and having faith in God over our lives. We don't have to carry everything ourselves. We don't have to perform. But this week, might I encourage you to practice rest. We've heard of the theology of rest. Now it is time to implement a practice of rest. Maybe pick one of these suggestions and see how God might meet you in the space that you are in and in the season that you are in. And may he bring a little bit more joy into your restful heart this week. Well, thank you for diving deep with me once again. I hope that this episode hit a couple of buttons for you at least. But if it did, I'd encourage you to share it with someone who you think might need to hear it as well. Otherwise, I am John Coombs, and it's been great talking to you, and I'll chat to you next time. Thanks very much.